So what are you working on this week?
Yeah, so this week's been a good week. I just got one of my listings under contract last night, and I'm putting another listing on the MLS today. Um, the one I got under contract yesterday was a more first time home buyer price point, so it was right at 245. This listing is going to be about 500,000 that I'm putting on today. So that's a little bit above the median price point. But that's most of what I'm working on right now is listings. So a lot of paperwork, a lot of back and forth, double checking on things with clients, confirming photos, you get it, all the fun stuff.
Yeah, how's inventory there?
It's good. Building a little bit. The spring market is here. This is kind of the time that we typically have it. It has not been as much of a pickup from the amount of uh, inventory that we have on the market comparatively. It's a little better than last year. And I unfortunately I don't have the numbers in front of me. I was looking at them last week, but it's a little better than last year, but it's still not, quite up to 2020, 21, 22 levels. It's closer to where it was 2019. So, you know. But
So
I
you're actually getting to be a healthy market.
Yeah, right, yeah. Um
Yeah.
yeah, transactions are still down a little bit. I mean, on my one listing that we just got under contract, we've maybe had 5 or 6 showings, and then we finally got an offer. So
Okay.
on something
Well,
like
you priced it right. 5 or 6 and you get an offer. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, I did price it right. So all the comps were looking between about 240 and 247, 248. So we went in at 245.
Okay.
And the one thing that was hurting us is there was a house on the same street, same exact floor plan for 235. But the problem with that one is it had no backyard, and it was kind of on the worst side of the street, so to speak. So we
Hmm.
priced it 10,000 more for triple the size of the backyard and better area. So um, yeah, but that's definitely healthy. But I think in years past we would have seen, anywhere between 15 and 25 showings on that property within the first, week and a half. So I certainly would have expected more, but I'm, nevertheless still happy to have it under contract, and I know my seller's happy as well.
Okay. I got you screen off. Can you hear my audio now?
Yeah, I can still hear you
Okay.
good.
Yep.
What
I'm in the middle
Craig, can you hear me okay?
and it looks like we have someone else on too, right?
Yep. Yep. Sorry, Craig. I just lost you. I think your audio cut out the last 10 or 15 seconds. I don't know if that's my end or not.
No, that's my end. Hey, I gotta jump off for a little bit. Let me wrap this up and I'll jump right back on.
Sounds great, Craig. Talk to you
Okay.
soon.
All right, thanks.
Looks like we had Ravi jump on. Ravi, how are you doing today?
Hey, Gaur, I'm doing good, Hunter. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. Yeah, thanks for joining us again this week.
Yeah, no problem.
What
Trying to learn in every meeting. Yeah,
Yeah, hey, absolutely. It's what it's all about.
yeah,
Zuber always talks about, it's looking at your buy box, it's doing the work day in and day out. And, that's
yeah,
that's really what it is, on the real estate agent side as well. It's, doing
yeah,
the work day in, day out. So it's
yeah.
no complaints. But what are you working on this week, Robbie?
Um, so I've been, I built my buy box for one of the city in California. The yield is in negatives. So I'm going to look into some other town, um, so which is close to me. Uh, so that's my plan. So I'm switching to another town to see if I can cash flow.
Awesome.
And in the Zuber meeting Sunday, I learned this 50 40 10 approach. You know where I can get uh, loan for 50%, and maybe for 40% I can ask loan from the seller. So that is one dimension I learned. So I'm going to apply that and see how it works.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never used the 50/40/10 loan product, but it's definitely something that sounds really appealing, especially if you can go buy, $1 million apartment complex and put,
Yeah.
$100,000 down and then finance the rest.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's great.
And since the interest rate is so high nowadays, the first 50% we can get for high interest. And if the seller is ready to finance the 40% with the less interest rate, so we can cash flow, right? So that's the idea.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, you're exactly right. Because
Yeah.
if, let's say if the bottom 50% is at, 8% interest, well,
Yeah.
really you've got 4% interest, and then if the seller carries 40% for zero interest,
Yeah.
that blended rate drops down quite significantly.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. Looks like we got Herman on. Herman, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, what all are you working on this week?
I am working on making offers. I'm working on reviewing my buy box and making offers.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are the offers that you're making, are those to on market or off market properties?
Oh, right now on market.
On market, okay. And
Yeah.
for the areas that you're working in, do you have a buyer's agent? Or are you, representing yourself, with the listing agent? What's been your approach right now?
I'm an agent as well. So I'm just contacting the listing agent
Awesome.
and making offers. Yeah. That's I'm focusing on the value add properties and yeah, see, those the prediction is, those might come up more and more, and then we'll, just have to keep following up and see what sticks.
Sure. Yeah, I know a lot of times when I make offers to listing agents, my offer is not ideal for the seller. What I mean by that is I'm offering either significantly less of a purchase price or some sort of creative offer or both. So what's been the feedback for you on the offers that you've been submitting?
Yeah, basically no response sometimes. Tell me I'm way off, those kind of responses. Um, I guess, the expectation is the percentage, the hit rate could be really low, right? It could be 15-20% to have a conversation going on. So, I kind of accept that and then just keep keep doing the grind work, making offers and following up and see you know, which seller is more motivated than others.
Mhm.
Yeah. I do you when you do that, do you typically give them like three different offers, like what Zuba was talking about?
I really give them two offers. I essentially give them um, more or less like a price that I would go buy it at to get financing from a bank or DSCR, and put 20% down and buy it. So that's kind of my price. And it's more in line with a cash offer price. Like people have different formulas. Somebody might say 60 cents on the dollar, somebody might say 70. My offers are probably closer to 75 cents on the dollar. If I'm going to get bank financing. So, if it's listed for 200,000, I'm going to offer 150. But a lot of times, recently, I've been offering two different kind of creative finance offers. I've been giving full ask, or I've been getting over ask. So it's a bit of a bold strategy. I haven't been able to purchase a property like this, so I don't know how it would work long term. But here's my thinking, and you can give me some feedback on it. Let's say that there's a duplex that's worth 200,000. Well, if I offer 225 or even 250 for the property, but I get the seller to finance 100% of that at a payment that works for me and probably 0% interest. It might have a 15-year pay down schedule to where 15 years it pays down to zero. So it's not a 30-year mortgage, and maybe there's a balloon, maybe not. But essentially, I'm trying to figure out how can I go acquire a property that I could still cash flow on, and I can get the seller a monthly number that they like and a purchase price that's probably better than they want. So, it's to a degree, it's kind of throwing offers out and seeing what sticks. But I just have a hunch that there's some seller out there somewhere that says, hey, I'll take higher than ask for my house and I'll finance it for you on some terms that work for both of us. So that's kind of where I am right now with those offers.
How much down are you doing for those kind of offers?
So on the creative stuff, I'm typically doing little to no money down.
Mm.
Reason being is because I'm going to make an offer for what I like and what works for me. I mean, ideally, I don't want to put any money down to go buy a property because I know how to run it well. I'm buying it from a homeowner. So the only reason they need a down payment is to feel safe and comfortable doing the transaction. Most of the time, okay. There are probably some few circumstances where somebody really wants to go have a down payment to pay closing costs, agents, whatever. But a lot of the times I'm trying to make an offer with zero down. So let me pull up a financial calculator. I'll kind of run through some scenarios. Let me see if I can share my screen real quick to show you this. All right, can you see this okay?
Yes.
Okay. So this is just a real simple financial calculator, but this is the way my brain thinks about it. So typically I'm going to try to offer higher than listing. So in this case, the listing price is 200. So I'm offering them 50 grand more than what their house is listed for. I'm going to go in trying to get 0% interest. And then we're really trying to figure out what payment works well for the seller. I'm just going to make up a number. I'm going to say it's 1,500. And I'm going to compute the number of payments, which is 166, which that is 13, almost 14 years. So in this scenario, I could go buy a duplex house, whatever the asset behind the numbers is. I'm putting nothing down. I'm paying 1,500 a month, hopefully going to cash flow off of that. There's 0% interest, and then I'm going to pay this loan off entirely after 14 years. So the seller doesn't have to worry about holding a 30-year note for somebody or anything like that. I want to find a way to pay the seller more money, the purchase price, because really for me, with real estate professional status, I get tax benefits by buying assets worth more money. Now there's some trade-offs, so we could go into that for a second if somebody wants to, but it's better for me to get more depreciation if I can, if I'm fixing my payment and I'm not going to have to refinance the property. I mean, worst case scenario, if I bought something like this, it doesn't cash flow and I lose money every month. But if I set it up right in the beginning, I'm thinking somebody might take that offer. So anyway, long explanation, Herman, but hopefully that makes sense. That's kind of my offers for properties over listing price. And, again, it's all about just trying to figure out what, will this work for the seller? What are they really looking for?
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So let's say, in that scenario, if you're offering 250, 50 over 200, I mean, in about 14 years or 15 years, if your rate of inflation is like, let's say 5%, after 14 years, and I just pull up my calculator, if you do that balloon payment after 14 years, effectively it's like 126K in today's dollars, right? And then you're kind of like buying a cash flow. So I guess, if you're saying 1,500 every month to pay the seller, you probably would be looking at 2,100, 20 to like 2K to $2,200, per month as a rent payment, and then you're making about $600-700 a month on that.
Yeah,
I,
I mean,
I guess that makes sense if you did the math already and kind of did it that way.
yeah,
Yeah.
and this is really just from the financing side. I mean, in an ideal scenario, it's going to rent for 2,000 to 2,300, kind of like you said. I mean, I would probably net 200 to 300 a month, maybe, after you pay property manager, taxes, insurance, all that. So it's not, maybe a true 600 or 700 a month in cash flow. But
Mhm.
really, the way I'm looking at it is, can I work a deal with the seller where they allow me to buy their property from them? I am now the one taking care and managing it for 14 years until I pay them off. Then in 14 years, I'm going to have a free and clear asset that's now generating, let's call it 25, 2,800, 3,000 in rent. I don't know how much rent will, increase in 15 years, who knows? But that's just kind of my thought process. Because if I can pick up 2 or 3 of those, have no money into it for a down payment, maybe I pay a couple thousand in closing costs. I'm now catapulting my wealth over time, and my debt pay down schedule is increasing every month very quickly. So for me, that's really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for some cash flow, tax benefits, and a really favorable debt schedule so that I can pay these things off pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess, if you have a few of those together and then in 15 years, you get, a lot of properties, um, as a paid off assets.
Mhm.
And then you get cash flow all these years as well.
Yeah. And um, we were talking a little bit about the 50 40 10 earlier. If you were to look at those two loans side by side, a 50 40 10 is going to pay off in probably 25 or 30 years. Maybe there's a balloon payment for the seller equity, whatever. But you're going to be paying or having to go, beat the seller down on pricing from 200 to 150 to make the numbers work, or maybe 175, who knows? But you're having to beat them down on price, and it's going to take you so much longer to pay it off. So it's almost like if the seller is willing to play ball with you, you just give them a much higher purchase price, basically giving them 50 grand of interest, kind of paid up front, so to speak. And then it's really just a matter of time before those things pay off. And you've got a bunch of free and clear properties, and you help the seller get more money for their property, and you made it work for you.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Hmm.
So
So your two offers, one is like at asking, and then the other one is a little higher, and then 0% seller financing in that case.
yeah, basically so. And I think there's a couple different ways to pitch it depending upon if you're talking with agents or the sellers directly.
Mhm.
I I've just found that agents tend to throw up, red flags and roadblocks when you're trying to talk through a creative finance offer with them. Like, it doesn't matter how skilled the agent is at being an agent or being a fiduciary for their clients. Most agents just don't fundamentally understand how it helps. And most importantly, they don't understand why their seller would want to take that offer. They think that cash is better, and that's not always the case. There's certainly circumstances where cash is better. But let's say that you have somebody who's older. Let's say they're 80 and their life expectancy is 85. So they're, potentially going to have to be dealing with estate issues, and let's say they have 2 kids, they want to pass everything down to their kids. Well, if they sell that, that asset, they're now going to have to pay capital gains, most likely, unless it's their primary. Um, and essentially, if they were to do some tax planning, work with you, you could set it up to where their kids get to take over the mortgage on the property at a stepped up basis. The kids can sell the mortgage for cash. I've helped people sell properties, or notes and mortgages for cash. I've done that myself. So there's just different ways to think through it and be creative that cash, won't always give you. And people just don't explore all their options. That's why we have to be good investors and counselors of the, of the clients we represent as agents, and then as the sellers and, consumers that we're talking with in the marketplace.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, a lot of agents out there, they don't really understand, seller financing. They don't understand the unique situations that you're talking about. And part of the things that I'm working on is really refining my pitch. Like, the education part of it, and also I guess, being able to show the positive side of not just cash, but terms are actually very important,
Mhm.
in that offer.
Yeah. How are you pitching your terms currently? Like how do you lay that out for the agent or the seller?
So, I usually would kind of pull up a whiteboard and kind of do some simple math, to show them. And I'm thinking about formalizing this, like, actually have some artifacts that I can rely upon and maybe send it to them as well. So I'm kind of playing with that. How about yourself?
Yeah, no, that's great. Really for me, I want to make sure that I maximize my time with the right agents and sellers,
Mm,
the
mm.
who's open to conversations. And I'm sure there's got to be a better way to do it, which is why I wanted to learn how you do it. I typically just send an email to the agent and I'll say, hey, here's my offer, offer number one and offer number two. But for the second offer, I'll say, hey, I want to pay $250 for the property. I'm going to pay, in this case, it was $1,500 a month, but let's, you know, you could do it one of two ways. You could either say, hey, I want to pay $1,500 a month, or I want to pay 18,000 a year, which is same numbers. Do you think your seller would be open to that? And then at that point, you can go back and forth with the agent and figure out, maybe the seller's open to it, maybe they're not. How do we figure out what's best for them? So, but I like the thought process of doing a whiteboard. I mean, I almost wonder if you could do like a video of, kind of just like explaining like, hey, here's, an example of a deal I did, and here's where it made sense for these sellers. Even getting like testimonials or something.
Yeah, that's a good point about getting testimonials. Um, the reason why I sometimes do whiteboard because I find out some agents, and it's just like everybody else, some people can understand better when you have something visual in front of them to kind of draw it out and show them. And people there's some people who better understand through listening. So, some it kind of depends on who it is. Um, but I like your idea that you might give them like offer option one and offer option two, and maybe when I present that offer option two, I might not go into the nitty gritty, details yet. Kind of like pique their interest, and if they're interested, they would, call me back, and then we can step it through.
Yeah, and that's always a great way to do it. I typically try to ask agents like, hey, can we set up a three-way call with your seller? I just find it's easier when we can all talk through it, and that way I can answer any questions about my offer. Typically, and I I wish I had an example of it somewhere. I'd pull it up and show you. But normally, in both of my offers, I will put a paragraph above that says, "Hey, these are the general terms that go with it. 2 weeks due diligence, a month due diligence, whatever those terms are for my inspection period, earnest money, all that." So that way, they know, hey, these terms are the same for both offers. It's just a little structured differently on the offers as far as what the seller wants to accept.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, and I've found that when I break it out like that, then the agent or the seller can go back and say, "Hey, I want to talk through option one or two, but I don't like the earnest money. I don't want you putting $500 down. I want you to put $2,000 down." It's like, okay, great. Let's talk through that. As part of our conversation around, offer number two. So. Well, it looks like we had a couple other people join, Jack, and then it looks like we have another person. Doesn't look like the name is there, but thank you both for joining. What's going on in your worlds?
Nothing much. I just took some photos today of a rental I'm going to put online, hopefully tonight. Um, no, I always for some reason seem to catch these meetings towards the end, but they're very useful and very helpful. Sad thing is I just lost track of time. I was literally sitting here waiting for it to start, and somehow I looked at the clock and it was 4:30. I'm not even sure how that happened. I was sitting here at 3:40 waiting for it to start, so I'm not sure how I managed to pull that one off.
Well, hey, all good. Glad that you're able to jump on and participate. I mean, we'll probably go for another 15 to 25 minutes, give or take. Sometimes we go full hour, sometimes it's more like 45 minutes. It just kind of depends on who all's here and what conversations we get into.
Hello, and I'm new. I just joined the school community and I don't have experience in real estate, but I'm hoping to gain some. I'm on my buy box development.
Awesome. What market or area are you looking in right now?
That is a problem. The area I live in is not going to cash flow, so I have to go outside of my geographic location, and I already made a decision. I don't want to fly, so I live in New Jersey, so the closest to me would be Pennsylvania.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Well, I know a lot of people who invest in Pennsylvania. I mean, Jack's close to you, I think, probably by a couple hours. But yeah, you can find some good deals on the Pennsylvania market. So that's great.
Yeah, it's just I don't have the team. I don't know anything about Pennsylvania, and there are so many areas that simply underdeveloped, or like, yes, you can find the home that is cheap, but there are no jobs around. So who is going to pay for the rent? I'm trying to find something that is economically stable and drivable, and I still can find a good team because I'm not planning on leaving full-time job anytime soon. So I would have to outsource a lot of things.
Awesome. Well, if you need help connecting with agents in the different areas that you're looking in, let me know. I mean, I'm sure, Herman, as well as other agents in the school community can help you with this, but I have a very large, about 100,000 agent network that I talk with. And, we have different agents in different pockets of the country. So regardless of what area you're looking in, I'm always happy to, find somebody to help you in that area.
Thank you, Hunter. I appreciate it. Yes.
Absolutely.
And I just realized I didn't put my name in. I'm Elena, and I will definitely be reaching out. It's just I'm trying to get my foot in because, as Zuber says, don't do anything until you have your buy box, and I don't.
Well, yeah, no, it's great advice. You definitely want your buy box. I think we talked about that maybe a month ago on this call, maybe 2 months ago now. I had an investor reach out to me because I'm in the Greenville, South Carolina market. So I'm an agent down here and also invest here as well. But I had a potential investor reach out, and he said, Hunter, I want to go buy some investment properties. I'm looking for fix and flips. I'm looking for buy and hold. I'm looking for value add. And in my head, I'm like, okay, that you just told me 3 different business models in real estate. What do you really want? And as we, dove into conversation, he didn't really have any idea what he wanted. And I could just tell right then and there, not in a mean way, but it's like, I don't want to waste my time trying to help somebody because they don't even know what they want. I've got very serious clients and a business to run. And while I'm certainly happy to sit down over coffee or, talking like this to help somebody, it's hard to work with an agent, if you don't know the specific details of what you're looking for.
100%, 100%. And you could have probably made fun of me a few years ago because my box was exactly like that. I don't know what I want to do, but I want to try everything.
Mhm.
Now I'm just trying to be grounded in reality. While Burr method is one wonderful method, I don't believe I will be effective unless it's near me. I joined a few other accountability calls where people say that full-timer tend to go for newer properties with a low management cost or upkeep. Sometimes they invest in condos because even more management handle to the association. And it's probably going to be my model. Something newer, something managed, because if I try to learn too much too fast and do too much too fast, I'm just gonna fail. Like I just have to be where I am right now. Right now, I'm ready to buy my first property, and it has to be it has to cash flow, but it cannot be 3, 5 unique staging options at the same time. I'm just not going to be able to handle it.
Yeah, well, I think there's definitely at least two, if not three, maybe different, avenues that kind of come to mind as you're talking and sharing. I know there's one person in the group, we talked with him last week, and he was buying a bunch of new construction properties from the builder. So, if you're looking for low maintenance, that's one of them. You could also certainly look at condos, but I know a lot of times you have high, HOA or monthly dues, and that can just really eat into your cash flow unless you buy something really cheap or you have a rent that is really high for that area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So all good things.
Well, thank you. I'm planning to stick around, so hopefully I will actually be sharing some kind of progress pretty soon.
Awesome. Well, hey, find me in school. Shoot me a message with your contact details and areas generally that you're looking in, and I'll be happy to connect you with an agent when you're
Thank you, Hunter. Appreciate it. Thank you.
absolutely. Jack, how far are you from the New Jersey line?
That's on the other side of the state. I'd be willing to bet about 5 hours or so.
Okay.
Where
I
are you, Jack?
sure how far of a drive it was.
Yeah, I think it'll take about 5 hours. I'm not exactly positive. It's been years since I've been out to Jersey.
Well, Elena, if you want to connect with somebody on the other side of the state, Jack is investing near, I think it's Pittsburgh, and then we also have Mark and a couple others kind of in that general area as well.
What is so special about Pittsburgh? I heard a few people talking about Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's a good market. Yeah, you were with us on the PA accountability area.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, same Jack,
Oh,
just a
okay.
black screen. I'm wearing
Okay,
pajamas.
okay.
But yeah, it's a good market, and there's a lot of different strategies to do. And I'm always learning stuff even from you guys too. I've heard Ratchet. Uh, I never like his area that he was investing in north of Pittsburgh. I never even necessarily thought about what he's doing, so I thought that was a good strategy, and it was something I never even thought of doing before. So Hunter, to catch you up, what he's doing is he's buying like newer builds in a high end area, about I don't know, about half hour. It's not 45 minutes, but between a half hour and 45 minutes north of the city, and he's making bank. He's kind of doing kind of like the Dion approach in Pittsburgh, and where he buys big areas or big properties and rents to for higher profit margins. I think he said he has like a football player or something in there. So that was pretty cool to hear.
That's awesome.
I'm kind of more on the opposite end of the spectrum where I'm building a portfolio with Class B and Class C buildings and working class areas. So it's a less expensive it's less expensive to get into the market, and I just rent to normal people, you know, people that work in manufacturing plants, truck drivers, uh, the tech industry, IT. Like there's so much going on here. I couldn't even begin to list all the different companies that are in the area.
Yeah, that's great. Kind of sounds like most of my tenant base for my Midwest properties. Mostly, people who are working, more blue collar jobs, which is great. I really feel like that's going to be a big resurgence, as far as jobs over the next, 10 to 15 years.
So which area you guys are referring to? Sorry, I didn't get that. Which market?
I'm
Jack.
in Pittsburgh.
Oh, Pittsburgh. Okay. Okay. It's far too away. It's, I'm in California. It's far away for me. I don't think I can consider that yet. Probably.
Well, Ravi, if it makes you feel any better, I can't tell you the last property I actually looked at that I bought.
Okay. Okay.
I think I'm on number 6 or 7 that I've bought and never seen in person.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, actually, yeah, my first property in Texas, which is like 2,000 miles away from me. Yeah, yeah, probably. Yeah, I might consider. Let's see.
I kind of surprised the tenants last week, or maybe it was the week before. I was doing inspections. Usually Cynthia likes to go and do them by herself because everyone loves her more than me. It's a personality difference, you know. So anyway, they haven't seen me in years, and they didn't even recognize me because, my hair's all long now, where before it was like almost military short, and
Yeah.
yeah, all different ways to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, if you don't mind me asking, if you buy in remote, how did you set up your team, or what steps did you take? How did you start?
Yeah, so the first property I bought out of state was in Ohio. I was helping a friend of mine look for some properties. He actually had a 30 or 40 unit apartment complex under contract in Toledo, of all places. And because he's also from my area in the upstate of South Carolina. He had been to Ohio years before. I'd never been, so we just decided to fly up there and actually walk his apartment complex. And so we drove back to the air. Well, we flew into Detroit, flew out of Columbus, so we kind of got to drive all over and really see and explore. But I just realized there's a lot of things about Ohio that's very similar to South Carolina. As far as farming, manufacturing. South Carolina has big populations in a couple of cities, and that's basically what Ohio is. It's a bunch of big cities and a bunch of small towns, and I'm sure there's lots of other states like that, but there's just really a lot of similarities that I liked. So I decided to go pick a city. So I chose kind of the Cincinnati, Dayton area. Then I built a team starting with the property manager, and then just kind of built it out from there. And really the property management company I have, they have a lot of things in-house. So they have like a contractor agent. So I've built a pretty deep relationship with most of their team. I mean, their team's probably 20, 25 people at this point, but so yeah, so that's just kind of how I started. And then I just, after I did the first one, I realized I don't have to go actually see this in person for it to function well and run. Somebody has to, right? But it doesn't have to be me. So after I did the first one, I was like, okay, I feel better, about buying stuff sight unseen.
Yeah, the team is important, right? If you have some reliable person you can trust, yeah, that's the key.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly would not have bought it if I didn't have, a property management team and others that I trusted. And, I have a good inspector for the Cincinnati, Dayton area now. So, all of my properties get home inspections. I'm not just going to buy something without, knowing what's there.
Yeah. So you have a property manager there, right? Or you are self-managing?
No, I have a property manager there. We self-manage the rentals that are within an hour and a half radius of where we're located
Okay.
geographically, which that's only about 6 units, 5 or 6 units. Let me count.
Okay. Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6 units, right?
Okay.
So, in the future, as we buy stuff that's local to us, we'll certainly kind of throw it under our personal, property management umbrella. Otherwise, we'll buy geographically where we already have teams in place. So,
Okay.
really, the main focus is Ohio. I have another property in Iowa, and then I have a couple others in North Carolina. So, but really, the main focus is my area and then up in Ohio.
Let me ask you, how did you go from not having experience in estimating rehab costs to actually having a good idea? Is it something that your property managers were giving you, or you were self-taught, or what was your onboarding process?
I might not be the best person to answer that. I hate to say it's trial by fire, but unfortunately, that's kind of the case. I mean, I can't tell you how much money I've spent on repairs and CapEx over 4 years. It's probably close to 6 figures. So I'm probably not the right person to be talking about that. So Ravi or Jack, I don't know if you guys have more experience with that one.
My earpiece cut out in the middle of her talking as I was trying to make coffee.
Jack, I'm trying to find out, how do people learn about rehab costs that they can foresee? I understand there are unforeseen maintenance, but when you evaluate the property, how do you go about estimating or knowing what to estimate for with repairs?
Yeah, that's, I don't know. I think it will come from experience. There is another person, Jim, right? He was going to prepare a spreadsheet and going to tell us, like, what every piece of the equipment in the house, what's the lifetime, what to look for when we analyze the property, right?
Mhm.
His name is Jim. He is based out
Yeah,
of California.
I
He,
remember him, but he said
he
it's going to take him a while. So
yeah, take him a while. Yeah. Yeah. So from my experience, right, I bought a new house 2 years back. I thought that next 5 years there wouldn't be any maintenance issue, but my hatchback had some issue because the builder didn't, set it up right. So it cost me $1,000 just last month. So it's always like, we plan for some maintenance, reserve some money for maintenance. Uh, the one thing I could have done better is like, when I got the quote from the property manager, I just, accepted it, right? I could have went to Yelp and asked for multiple quotes. I didn't do that, so I could have done that. Um, that is the mistake, like I could have understand what exactly is the issue and I could have saved some money, right? That takes time. Like, I have a W-2 job. I couldn't do more research. Um, so yeah, I think like by experience,
gotcha.
yeah,
For
yeah.
me, I'm kind of almost the opposite because it's like I grew up doing a lot of stuff myself
Uh-huh.
and helping out family members with their old broke houses and stuff. So it's like I kind of have an idea on what it's going to cost before I even call them, or at least a ballpark figure. So it's like I can really play hardball with a lot of these contractors because like they'll tell me, for example, like something may cost $10,000, and I'll say, well, according and like I already have the itemized list already done on my phone. I was like, well, according to Lowe's, I was like, and I'll be like, well, sorry. I was like, what's your preference and where you like to buy stuff? And they're like, well, Lowe's is fine. I'm like, well, according to Lowe's, it says that the stuff is literally going to cost $4,000. So why does it cost $10,000? I was like, all it is this, and this. So you're charging me for $6,000 worth for 10 hours worth of work. So having more of that knowledge background and doing handyman stuff on the side for a while, I can play more hardball with these guys.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I should do. Like, I could have like went to YouTube or went to Lowe's or Home Depot. I could have, uh, asked them like, this is what happened. So what do I do? How much it would cost to fix it, right? I could have done it. Yeah, that I should do it next time. Yeah.
I will say as well, it's definitely helpful to get multiple quotes. Like I had to go replace an HVAC at my North Carolina property. We got one quote at 6,000. A second quote came in because I was trying to see if I could beat six. A second quote came in at 11,500. So, you know, there's obviously a huge discrepancy for the same exact job, and I've had that happen. I don't know how many times. I had so at the same property, I had to go redo a bunch of subfloor stuff. It was about 20,000. The initial quote on that was 55,000. So part of it, it's like I know what needs to be done, and I might not know the exact cost, but I know the ballpark it's going to be in. So I
Yeah.
know an HVAC is about $5,000 to $7,000, depending upon the area, the contractor, et cetera. But if someone's going to charge me 12,000, I know that's obviously not right.
Yeah.
So part of that is experience, and part of that you can also just kind of Google and say, hey, what's the range for a, two and a half
Yeah.
market?
Yeah, ChatGPT, it does a good job. Like, I put the quote into ChatGPT, right? Um, it gave me some ballpark, like, how much it would cost. Um, uh, yeah, I think, yeah, we have to do some research. Like, my problem is I done all the research after I accepted the work order. Had I done it before, like, I could have saved a few bucks, right? Yeah.
But you gain experience.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the one thing is like, I talked to that guy. He said, I asked him like, can you give me any discount? Like it's after accepting it. He said, like, I can't give now, but I had another unit, right? He said like, I will go and check the other unit free, right? And if something there, then I will fix it. So I said, okay, that's good. Go and check the next property. Um, yeah, so yeah, we have to engage them. Otherwise, we are not going to get anything. Yeah.
I just thought of something else too, and I never thought of this, but I think it was Dion was just talking about this on his channel. But he's saying get the normal three quotes, that he always says, but
Yeah.
something he do or he started doing because of Matt. Or like I said, I kind of forget who said this, but they'll pick. It had to be Matt. Now I'm thinking of it. He'll pick a certain thing that the contractors differed in and why it's priced differently, and they'll start to ask them about why is it different on both ends, and then he's not so much being like, hey, can you match it on this end? He's like, what are you guys doing different? Like, what are you seeing that he's not seeing? What, and just understanding their thinking method because it may be a quality issue where one contractor saw something that the other one completely missed, or
Yeah.
something that the one contractor is preparing for the worst, or just
Yeah. And and if they know that like you are outsider, they are trying to quote high price. Somehow,
Mhm.
like I have to like make sure that they are not seeing where I live, what's my area code, right? Phone area code. I got to do that. Um, Otherwise, if they know that I'm outsider, out of state, they're trying to quote more.
I kind of find this is just a little personal thing I like to do just for my own
Mhm.
humor, but my I do a lot of my calls and stuff with a Google Voice number, but it's based
Yeah.
out of Virginia. So I
Uh-huh.
completely whoever I decide to go with, I completely mind blow them whenever I show up on the job site whenever they're there.
Hmm.
They don't because they don't expect to see the guy from supposedly Virginia when they're talking to me. showing up on the job site.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody said that the way they're doing it, they prepare the ranges or the desired price, but she knows the market, meaning I wouldn't be able to put together this grid, but he already have experience, and all the prices are very, very low, and he just simply goes through the list of contractors saying, "Can you do it for this price? Can you do it for this price? Can you do it for this price?" Until he finds someone who says yes.
Yeah, not a bad way to do it. Somebody obviously just has to have a Rolodex of, 5 to 15 different contractors, who could do that work. I mean, typically, I feel like if you find 3 that are, within a certain price range that something should cost, that's normally good enough for me. Normally, I just want to get multiple quotes to be able to weed out any really high bids on something that I know, shouldn't cost that.
So I was learning recently from a guy who flips houses, and he was telling me, and it makes perfect sense. I just never thought of it. So this is something else you can do too. He'll show up to a job site, because he does handyman stuff on the side. He's contract for everything, but he has to charge more for when he shows up because he has a licensing and all that stuff. But he has what he calls like his crew. He calls them the B crew because they're not licensed in anything. They're basically subcontractors, 1099s that show up on the job site every day for him. And he's still trying to teach them stuff. So he charges a lesser rate for them. So sometimes you might be able to have an option of paying the other people less money, but then at the same time, you kind of have to watch what they're doing almost the entire time. So it's something to consider if you built trust with these people. I'm just putting another option is all.
Yeah, if you have a good foreman, he can choose his own subcontractors because ultimately you deal and ask accountabilities on that foreman, and you have to have a good relationship. I had something like that, but it was in my home, meaning I could manage those relationships.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Nice seeing you all. I got to jump onto another call. Talk
Absolutely.
to you guys next week.
Sounds great. Yeah, we'll go ahead and end it. Thanks everyone for hopping on, and I typically try to post the recording in ORAAT. If not, it's always on my YouTube channel. So feel free to go back and watch it if you ever want to do that.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good seeing you.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.